We spend our whole lives surrounded by whispers of the unknown. Some call it heaven. Some call it rebirth. Some call it nothing at all. Beyond the final breath lies a space no living mind has entered and returned from unchanged. Across centuries, humanity has woven stories about that space. Not because we know, but because we need to believe something. Whether those stories are true or not is not the question I'm here to answer. I'm here to walk with you through them, to see what they reveal about us. This is part 3 of a series called Death, the Inevitable Truth. In part 1, we face death directly, not as a distant idea, but as the one certainty we all carry. We spoke about the way most of us keep it in the corner of our minds, pretending it's not there, yet how acknowledging it changes how we live. In part 2, we explored the question, what is death, really? We looked at it through the lenses of biology, philosophy, and spirit, how the body stops, how the mind unravels, and how cultures interpret that stillness. Now, in part 3, we step beyond that stillness. We ask, what lies beyond? We will walk through the landscapes drawn by the world's most enduring beliefs, Christian visions of heaven and hell, the Islamic promise of eternal justice, Hindu and Buddhist cycles of rebirth, and the secular conviction that there may be nothing at all. We will also touch on stranger modern ideas, simulation theory, the mind as an illusion, and the possibility that consciousness itself is something we cannot measure. We will not argue for or against. We will simply wander through these visions and notice what they reveal about how humans make peace with the end. When we look across the world, the beliefs about what happens after death are as varied as the landscapes we live in. Yet, they can be gathered into a few broad shapes, like paths leading into the same fog, each one marked with different signs. The first is the Abrahamic path, found in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In all three, life is not the full story. There is an afterlife shaped by moral accountability. In Judaism, the focus is less on vividly describing heaven or hell, and more on the continuing presence of the soul and the coming of a future world made right. In Christianity, death is a doorway to eternal union with God or eternal separation from Him, with some traditions teaching an intermediate state of cleansing. In Islam, the afterlife is detailed and direct. A day of judgment, eternal reward for the righteous, eternal consequence for the wicked, and the perfect justice of God balancing every deed. The second group is the Dharmic path, found in Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and related traditions. Here, death is not a single end, but part of a cycle: birth, death, and rebirth, driven by karma, the moral weight of one's actions. Liberation is possible, but it requires breaking free from the cycle entirely, reaching enlightenment or union with the ultimate reality. The third is the secular and scientific view, where consciousness is seen as a product of the brain. When the body ends, the mind ends too. For some, this is the cold truth. For others, it is freeing, a call to live fully now without waiting for another life. And then, there are the fringe and modern speculations, simulation theory, the idea that consciousness might persist in ways we can't measure, or that death might be a shift to another layer of reality entirely. Each of these visions answers the same question in a different voice. And in the parts ahead, we will walk through them slowly, one by one, hearing not only what they say about death, but what they reveal about life. In the Jewish tradition, the afterlife is not described with the vivid detail found in later Abrahamic faiths. It is quieter, more understated, like a door slightly ajar, rather than a grand gate flung open. The Hebrew Bible speaks of Sheol, a shadowy realm where all the dead go, righteous and wicked alike. It is not a place of torture or paradise, but simply the domain of the dead, a holding space where life's activity is stilled. Over time, the understanding of the afterlife in Judaism grew and shifted, shaped by centuries of thought, exile, and the influence of surrounding cultures. In rabbinic teachings, the concept of Olam Haba, the world to come, begins to take shape. This is the perfected world that follows the coming of the Messiah, a time when the righteous are rewarded, justice is fulfilled, and peace covers the earth. Some traditions hold that the soul remains conscious after death, experiencing a foretaste of its destiny, whether joy in God's presence or separation from it, before that final restoration. There is also the idea of Gan Eden, the spiritual paradise for the righteous, and Gehinnom, a purifying place for the soul. Gehinnom is not eternal damnation. It is often seen as a temporary state, a refining fire in which the soul is cleansed before it can enter the world to come. Most teachings suggest this process lasts no more than 12 months. Judaism's afterlife is less about fear or vivid reward, and more about moral responsibility here and now. The focus is on tikkun olam, repairing the world in this life. What lies beyond is important, but it is not meant to distract from the work that must be done while breath still fills the lungs. In this vision, death is not a cliff edge, but a bend in the road, a continuation of the covenant between God and his people. In Christianity, the afterlife is painted in vivid strokes. Death is not simply an ending. It is a decisive crossing, a moment when the soul stands in the light of truth and nothing can be hidden. At the heart of the Christian vision is the belief that life is a temporary pilgrimage toward an eternal home. The New Testament speaks of two destinies: eternal life with God and eternal separation from him. Heaven is described as a place of perfect union. No pain, no death, no shadow, where every tear is wiped away. It is more than a location. It is being fully in the presence of God, the source of love itself. Hell, in contrast, is not merely fire and torment as popular imagery suggests. It is separation. It is the self choosing to remain apart from God's light. For some Christian traditions, it is an eternal state. For others, it may be annihilation, the soul ceasing to exist. Some branches of Christianity, especially Catholicism, also teach about purgatory, a temporary state where souls destined for heaven are purified. It is not punishment, but preparation, a refining of the heart before it enters perfect holiness. The Christian story ends not with individual souls floating in some distant realm, but with the resurrection, a future moment when all will be raised, creation will be renewed, and God's kingdom will be fully established. In this hope, death loses its permanence. For believers, this vision shapes life profoundly. Every act of love, every choice toward mercy, is a seed that grows into eternity. The grief of losing someone is softened by the promise of reunion. For those outside the faith, the Christian afterlife can still be haunting, because it claims that love and justice are not just human dreams, but eternal realities, and that one day, every soul will face them. In Islam, the afterlife is not a distant possibility. It is an unshakable certainty, woven into the very fabric of belief. The Quran speaks of it with clarity, urgency, and reverence. Death is not an interruption. It is a transition, and what comes after is as real as the ground beneath our feet. When a person dies, their soul enters Barzakh, a barrier realm between this life and the day of judgment. In Barzakh, the soul exists in a state of conscious waiting, aware of what is to come. Islamic tradition describes the questioning in the grave, when two angels, Munkar and Nakir, ask about one's faith, deeds, and allegiance to truth. In this moment, the soul begins to glimpse its eternal path. Then comes the day of judgment, a day when all creation is gathered. The Quran describes mountains crumbling, the sky splitting, and every soul brought forth without disguise or defense. The scales of justice are set. Every act of kindness, every act of harm, each sincere prayer, each hidden betrayal, nothing is forgotten. The balance is perfect. There is no error in this court. Jannah, paradise, is depicted not only as lush gardens and flowing rivers, but as a state of perfect peace. There is reunion with loved ones, endless beauty, and above all, the presence of God, the source of light and mercy. Jahannam, hell, is its opposite. A place of deep regret, spiritual and physical pain, proportionate to the gravity of one's rejection of truth and persistence in injustice. For some, it is eternal. For others, it may serve as purification before mercy finally reaches them. At the heart of this vision is a balance between justice and mercy. In Islam, God's mercy is said to outweigh his wrath. The doors of forgiveness remain open until the final breath, and even then, his compassion extends beyond human understanding. For the believer, life is a trust. Every breath, every opportunity a gift to be accounted for. Death is not the erasure of self. It is the meeting with the one who gave life, the unveiling of the truth behind the veil. In this vision, the end is not darkness. It is the moment when everything hidden is brought into the light. In Hinduism, death is not the end, it is a turning of the wheel. The soul, or Atman, is eternal. Bodies perish, but the Atman moves on, carrying with it the weight of its past actions, choices, and intentions. This weight is called karma, and it shapes what comes next. The afterlife in Hindu thought is not a single destination, but part of an ongoing cycle called samsara, birth, death, and rebirth. Each life is both a continuation of the last and a preparation for the next. A virtuous life, lived in accordance with dharma, righteous duty, can lead to a more favorable rebirth. A life steeped in harm, ignorance, or selfishness can lead to suffering in the next. Between lives, the soul may experience realms of reward or punishment, not as permanent states, but as temporary phases before the next incarnation. These realms are countless, each reflecting the moral and spiritual state of the soul. But in Hinduism, even the most exalted heavenly state is not the final goal. The highest aim is moksha, liberation from the cycle entirely. Moksha is not about going to a place. It is about awakening to the truth that the soul and Brahman, the ultimate reality, are one. It is the dissolving of separation, the end of ignorance, and the release from the binding grip of desire and attachment. Different Hindu traditions describe the path to moksha in different ways, through knowledge, devotion, selfless action, or meditation. But all agree, until liberation is reached, the soul will return, again and again, to learn, to grow, to face the consequences of its actions. In this vision, death is neither an enemy nor a final curtain. It is a doorway back into the vast classroom of existence. And for those who attain moksha, it is the last doorway they will ever walk through. The moment the soul steps out of time and into the eternal. In Buddhism, the question of the afterlife is approached differently. Here, there is no eternal, unchanging soul that passes from life to life. Instead, existence is a continuous flow, a chain of causes and effects, a stream of consciousness that moves forward without a fixed self at its center. This movement is shaped by karma, much like in Hinduism, but karma in Buddhism is less about cosmic reward and punishment, and more about the natural unfolding of actions and their consequences. Every thought, word, and deed plants seeds that will bear fruit, if not in this life, then in the next. Death, then, is simply another moment in this flow. When the body ceases, the karmic momentum continues, giving rise to a new existence. This rebirth can take many forms: human, animal, heavenly, or hellish realms, each reflecting the state of one's mind and actions. But none of these realms are permanent. They are all subject to impermanence, the constant change that marks all conditioned things. The ultimate goal in Buddhism is not a heavenly rebirth, but nirvana, the cessation of suffering and the end of the cycle of birth and death, known as samsara. Nirvana is not a place, but a state beyond craving, beyond ignorance, beyond the restless turning of the wheel. It is freedom from the causes of suffering, the extinguishing of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. Different branches of Buddhism describe the journey in different ways. In Theravada, nirvana is the complete unbinding of the self from the cycle. In Mahayana, the bodhisattva ideal emerges, choosing to delay personal liberation in order to help all beings awaken. In Tibetan traditions, the intermediate state after death, known as the bardo, is richly described, a realm where the mind encounters visions shaped by its own nature, leading either to liberation or rebirth. In this vision, death is neither to be feared nor clung to. It is simply another wave in the vast ocean of change. And for the one who reaches nirvana, it is the wave that dissolves entirely, returning to the stillness beneath all movement. For many, the afterlife is not a realm to be reached, but a comforting story we tell ourselves because we cannot bear the idea of nothingness. In the secular and scientific view, consciousness is understood as a function of the brain, a delicate arrangement of neurons and electrical impulses, shaped by biology and environment. When the brain ceases to function, this view holds, the mind ceases as well. There is no soul that drifts away, no hidden essence that continues in another realm. Death is the end of subjective experience. The screen going dark, the story ending mid-sentence without an epilogue. Some find this bleak, even unbearable. To imagine that everything you are, every memory, every joy, every love, could vanish entirely feels like staring into a void. And yet, others see it differently. If there is no afterlife, then life itself becomes infinitely precious. This one span of years, however long or short, is all there is, and that makes it worth living with intensity and purpose. In this framework, morality does not come from divine command but from empathy, reason, and the understanding that our actions ripple through the lives of others. Meaning is not given, it is made in the way we love, create, and leave the world better than we found it. Some secular thinkers acknowledge that while death may be the end of the individual, we are not erased entirely. Our actions, our influence, and even our genetic code live on in others. We return to the earth, our atoms scattered back into the cosmos, becoming part of the great cycle of matter and energy. In this vision, death is not a passage, it is a conclusion. Not a journey to somewhere else, but a final rest. And for some, that is not a tragedy, but a kind of peace. The quiet release of knowing that when the story is over, it is truly complete. Outside the great religious and scientific frameworks lies a landscape of ideas that do not fit neatly into either. They are the visions, theories, and intuitions that emerge when human imagination collides with the unknown. Some are born from philosophy, others from science's edges, and many from personal experience. One of the most talked about in recent years is simulation theory, the idea that our universe is not the ultimate reality, but a kind of digital construct created by a far more advanced intelligence. In this view, death might be akin to logging out or moving to another level of the simulation. It is not widely accepted in mainstream science, but it has gained attention among thinkers who note that the mathematics of our universe sometimes resembles coded patterns. Then there are theories rooted in quantum consciousness, speculations that the mind is not solely a product of the brain, but connected to a deeper fabric of reality. If true, death might not end awareness, but shift it into a different mode beyond our current perception. These ideas remain unproven, but they fascinate because they suggest our experience could be part of something vast and interconnected. Personal accounts also fuel the conversation. Near-death experiences, visions of light, reunions with deceased loved ones, feelings of overwhelming peace, are reported across cultures. Skeptics point to brain chemistry under extreme stress, while others see them as glimpses of another plane. There are even speculative philosophies that imagine death as a transition to parallel realities, where infinite versions of us continue to exist in branching timelines. It's an idea born from theoretical physics, but one that also resonates with ancient mystical thought, that nothing truly ends, it only transforms. These fringe perspectives do not carry the weight of ancient traditions or the rigor of established science. Yet they speak to the same longing, to believe that death is not an erasure, but a change. They are reminders that the human mind is not content with silence. It keeps reaching beyond the veil, trying to name the unnameable. We have walked through many landscapes, the solemn visions of the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism's quiet continuation, Christianity's great homecoming, Islam's scales of justice, the vast cycles of the dharmic paths, Hinduism's wheel of rebirth and final liberation, Buddhism's journey toward the extinction of suffering, the stillness of the secular view, where death is the quiet end of the story, and the speculative edges, simulation theories, quantum consciousness, near-death visions, and worlds beyond our own. Each belief, whether ancient or modern, is an answer to the same question: what lies beyond? And each answer reflects not only a theory about death, but a philosophy about life. A Christian who believes love will survive the grave will live differently than one who believes all ends at death. A Hindu who sees this life as one chapter in countless rebirths will measure time differently than one who fears only a single ending. Even the secular view, which may see death as final, can lead to a fierce urgency to live fully now. In the end, none of us can know with certainty. We can study, we can believe, we can imagine, but the moment of death remains unshared until we cross it ourselves. And perhaps that is the truth at the heart of it all. The unknown is not a flaw in the system. It is part of the design. The beliefs we hold about the afterlife are not just maps of the next world. They are mirrors showing us what we value in this one. Justice or mercy, liberation or belonging, continuation or completion. One day, each of us will step beyond the line we cannot see. Until then, we live here, in this breath, this moment, this fragile and luminous span between birth and death. And whatever lies beyond, the life we hold now is our chance to shape the story that carries us there. Thank you for walking with me through this part of the journey. These ideas, whether you believe in them or not, hold the power to shape how we live, and I would truly like to hear your thoughts. What do you believe happens after death? Which vision feels closest to the truth for you? Share your view in the comments, not as a debate, but as part of a shared reflection. If this conversation spoke to you, consider subscribing so you can join us for the rest of the series. A like or a share helps these ideas reach others who may also be quietly carrying the same questions. In our next episode, we step into a different but equally profound space. We will explore the rituals of death around the world, how cultures prepare for it, honor it, and carry the memory of those who have crossed over. From the solemn prayers of ancient traditions to the symbolic acts of letting go, we will see how humanity has tried to make peace with the inevitable. Until then, live well, live with awareness, and remember that this life is the one certain gift we have in our hands right now.